ready?
Yeah, let's go ahead and they can just join in when they can. Yeah, so let's start with the call to order and roll call.
Okay. Committee Member Chen?
Present.
Committee Member Larson is absent. Committee Member Mickey?
We can't hear you.
Sorry, present.
Okay. Vice Chair Mohammed?
Present.
Committee Member Peterson?
Here.
Chair Fasoon?
Here.
And Committee Member Melgen, apologies.
Present.
Great. Okay.
Okay, and with that, it looks like we can go on to the land acknowledgement. So the city of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lejeune. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The city of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. And with that, we can go on to the approval of minutes.
Okay. Any comments or questions on last month's minutes? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay. Committee Member Chen?
Aye.
Committee Member Larson is absent. Committee Member Melgen?
Aye.
Committee Member Mickey?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mohammed?
Aye.
Committee Member Peterson?
Aye.
Chair Fasoon?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes approved.
Should we open up for public comment?
Yes.
Okay, so for anyone who has the comments on items not on the agenda, I see a member of the public, two members with their hands raised. So we can jump over to public comment.
Okay. Jeremiah?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Good evening. So I was wondering if we could possibly put in the works for some sort of solar panel parking lots in Albany. Maybe we could start with the city hall. Basically, if you don't know what a solar panel parking lot is, it's just kind of like a carport or just some sort of raised structure that provides shade, but on the top is solar panels. I don't know how else to describe it. It's for instance, the city hall parking lot. It would be setting up some steel pillars about, I don't know, 20 feet high or something. And then you would build solar panels as the roof kind of thing. I hope you kind of know what I'm talking about. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just solar panel parking lots. What they do is I've seen it for the past few years when I drive around, and they're really neat. They provide, electricity on what was just an empty parking lot. Now it's converted to, some sort of structure to where it provides shade, and the shade is provided by the solar panels. So yeah, it's just basically a structure where there's solar panels about 20 feet high, and it allows rain to drop through. There's no solid roof or anything. It's just kind of solar panels. That's all it is. So yeah, I was wondering what we could do for solar panels around parking lots in Albany. And also, since the state of California with 2035 going to sell only electric powered vehicles, I was wondering, how do we implement some sort of infrastructure in Albany, such as, San Pablo or Solano Avenue, even gas stations, to where you're able to charge your electric car. And also, I was looking on Tesla's website, and you could go to Tesla's website and you can get power stations installed, even at the city hall or something like that. I know we do. Now I'm recalling, we do have things. I know there were supposed to be 5 to 10 electric chargers around the city, or was it supposed to be 2 at Public Works, 1 lower charger and 1 fast charger? So I was just wondering if we could I'm just here to friendly remind you about solar chargers, solar panels, and electric car chargers. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to point out someone joined with a phone number.
That is committee member Larson.
Awesome.
And I'm trying to, I can just say now since he can hear us, Eric, I'm going to allow you to talk, and you will just have to mute and unmute yourself from the audience. So you're now able to talk. But I'm going to go to our next public comment, which is Councilmember McQuaid.
Thank you very much. I am Peggy McQuaid, and as I wind down my term on the City Council, I wanted to take a minute of your time this evening to personally say thank you to each one of you for your service to our community. It is not always easy, nor is it always convenient to attend a monthly meeting or to do the work necessary to prepare for these meetings. Meeting on Zoom for over 2 years has impacted all of us in ways both known and unknown, and I'm so grateful for your perseverance and patience during this time. The Climate Action Committee serves as the green conscience for our community. During this time of ongoing and increasing climate crisis, your work is more important than ever. You have impacted the community implementing the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan and working with other city advisory bodies and the school district on sustainable features of new projects. You have worked on building electrification and zero energy transportation through various programs. You advise the City Council on allocating Measure DD revenues, and you met all of these challenges very professionally. Thank you again for all the work you have put into the Climate Action Committee, and I wish you every success in your future endeavors and hope you all continue to stay engaged and serving our Albany community. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, there are no other members of the public with their hands raised. So back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Awesome. With that, looks like we can go on to announcements.
Yes.
Starting with 4-1, sustainability events and resources.
Okay. So I have 2 announcements for you today, both from our countywide JPAs. One is I want to let everyone know that stopfoodwaste.org, which is organized by Stop Waste, has many unique and very helpful recipes, cooking tips, meal ingredient estimators to help you plan around any holiday or end of year gatherings to make sure you're not having excess food waste. So I encourage you to check that out. Also, we learned today that East Bay Community Energy is launching a new clean cooking social media contest to spread the word about induction cooking. And I'd like to encourage all of our members of the committee as well as members of the public to participate. It's easy to participate, and you could win your own induction cooktop. And if you need an induction cooktop in order to participate in this social media contest, please reach out to Michelle, or you can look on our website and put your name down to rent one of our free induction cooktops through the lending program. So more information about that. It's long URLs. I don't have short URLs, but I encourage you to either check out our Facebook, our Twitter, or our Instagram to find links to that. And I can always email individuals who are curious about the link if you email me. Those are my only two sustainability events and resources. So Chairperson, I can hand the mic over to our newest member of the Climate Action Committee, Mark Melgen. And Mark, if you'd be willing to unmute yourself and provide a personal introduction.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Mark Melgen. If you say the name, the D in the middle is silent, Melgen. I finished college with a degree in chemistry, worked for a few years in pharmaceutical research, and then made a big career switch to work for a consulting firm on air pollution. PG&E hired me to work on regulatory approval for a geothermal power plant. Approval of that plant was being delayed over concerns that hydrogen sulfide emissions from the plant might reach populated areas. After that geothermal plant was approved, two engineers in PG&E's electric planning department were tasked with bringing me up the learning curve about power plants, conservation programs, and the electricity grid. So I was in that group, the electric planning group, for a number of years. I worked on a variety of analyses and forecasting projects. I spent some time in PG&E's fossil power plant department, in the group within PG&E that bids to sell electric power into the various competitive electricity markets, and in PG&E's energy policy analysis group. When Governor Schwarzenegger signed the Global Warming Solutions Act in 2006, I transferred to a group that analyzed details of California's proposed cap and trade system, its low carbon fuel standard, its renewable portfolio standard for electricity brokers, and other climate-related initiatives. As a result, I feel I have a reasonably good understanding of the physics and chemistry of the greenhouse effect and of California's initiatives to reduce carbon emissions. I understand the operations of power plants and the electricity grid and the competitive electricity markets that are run by California's grid operator. On a personal note, my wife and I moved to Albany in 1986. Our house has rooftop solar panels, which were installed at about the same time that committee member Larson mentioned that he installed his. I also have a heat pump and more recently an induction cooktop. So I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Committee Member Melgen. All right. Next, I will provide a very brief update. There's a discussion of the active transportation plan happening on December 1st at the Transportation Commission meeting. This is an item that's on the Transportation Commission's work plan, and they're having an initial discussion of the planning effort about goals, objectives, larger themes at their December 1st meeting. You can find information about how to join that meeting and attend and make public comments as individuals, but not as members of the CAC, through our meeting agenda webpage, which is albanyca.org/meetings. So I encourage anyone on the committee or on the commission who's interested in learning more about that to attend that meeting on December 1st or to watch the YouTube recording. Any questions about that? Okay, seeing none, I'll go to our last announcement, which is Natasha, our Civic Spark Fellow, who's not here tonight, but was at PROS last Thursday, gave an exciting announcement that the council did approve a contract with Arbor Pro Inc. to start a street tree inventory. So inventorying all the current street trees and open tree wells in the city of Albany, which is phase 1 of the 2-phase street tree master planning effort. So like I said, there was an update that went to the Parks, Rec, and Open Space Commission last Thursday. They will be the main body that's reviewing the plan more frequently, but this committee will also be involved in reviewing the plan periodically. And I also encourage you, again, to attend any PROS meeting where it comes up and make comments as individuals. But we're very excited to say that the ball is rolling, and we're hoping to have a street tree master plan consultant RFP out in either January or February. So I will keep you all posted on that. Any questions? Okay. Seeing none, Chair Fasoon, we may want to do public comment.
Yeah, let's go over. Open up to public comment.
Okay, if any members of the public would like to speak to any of the announcements, please raise your hand. All right, I see one hand. Jeremiah?
Yeah, just real quick. I see your advertisement on Facebook posted 4 hours ago for the induction competition. So just want to let you know, give you some feedback that I see it. So if I see it, then maybe other people are seeing it. So just want to give you some positive feedback that it's visible to the public, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear it's been seen. Okay, we have another member of the public. Lucinda?
Yes, just very briefly, I wanted to welcome Mark Meljum and let him know how much I appreciate him stepping up to serve on this committee, and really appreciate the experience that he's bringing to the committee. Thank you.
Great. Okay, I don't see any other members of the public with their hand raised. So back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Awesome. With that, looks like we can go over to our presentation from AUSD, Albany Unified School District, and their environmental action plan.
Great. And I just promoted Kim Trutain from AUSD to a panelist position. Welcome, Kim. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Okay. I'll go ahead and share screen. Whoop, here we go. Well, I know some of you, but not all of you. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Kim Trutain. I am currently the Support Services Coordinator for Albany Unified School District and the co-chair of our Environmental Action Plan Committee. Prior to working for the district, I was a school board trustee from 2016 to 2020. I'm here tonight because our Environmental Action Plan Committee has drafted a document that I think all of you have access to, and we're in the public comment window for that document. And so I encourage all of you and any members of the public that are also watching this meeting to please read it and give us your comments now during the comment window so that we can incorporate your input. Our status is that, well, okay, before I get into that, I'm going to take a few steps back into our history, the history of this committee. Because before it was the Environmental Action Plan Committee, it was our Sustainability and Integrated Design Committee. In 2016, the voters of Albany approved 2 school bond measures, measures B and E, and those were large bonds, $95 million total, for the building an annex at the middle school, a courtyard addition at the high school, remodeling and rebuilding Ocean View Elementary and Marin Elementary. So on the heels of that, the Board of Education passed a resolution to make sure that we adhered to high sustainability standards for those building projects. And so we adopted the Collaborative for High Performance Schools standards. Those I think are more commonly known as the CHIP standards, and all 4 of our projects adhere to those. And 2 of them have been certified at this point. Marin isn't built yet, and we're looking forward to quickly receiving the certification for Ocean View Elementary. So after the sustainability and integrated design team had helped us in the design for those buildings, decided to reinvent itself as the Environmental Action Plan Committee. And following, I think, the lead of the city of Albany, because the city had already completed its climate adaptation plan at that point. So we're a bit of follow-ons to you guys, but we've made it to this point now. Although I have a dozen slides, I'm going to go through some of them pretty quickly. I wanted to say that the Environmental Action Plan, is the result of 2 years of work of this committee, and it is broad and far-reaching and aspirational. I'll go through the individual chapters just to name them a little later. What I also want to bring up is what this plan isn't, which at this point, the plan has been worked on by the committee, but it hasn't been reviewed internally by staff. Yeah. And then this second bullet here about policy, I think deserves some comment, because this may seem like a strange thing to focus on. But I think that school districts run in a peculiar way, now, and in a very different way from the city. So, of course, we're all subject to the same laws, the laws of the state of California and local ordinances. In addition, school districts are subject to education code, which is a law unto itself. And in addition to that, another layer is this idea of policy, which is not just a casual thing for a school district, it's a very serious thing. So normally what the district would do to govern itself is that the Board of Trustees, which are elected officials from the community, would determine appropriate goals for the district. And they would then pass and approve those policies as a board. And then in order to reach those goals, then a more sort of practical, sort of logistical document, which is called an administrative regulation, would be crafted by staff. And that combination of board policy and administrative regulation then has a lot to do about how the business of the school district is actually run day to day. So to bring us back, this environmental action plan draft is not a policy document and is not an AR. However, it does identify within it a number of existing policies and ARs that the district does have, and it points out the opportunity that there are others that perhaps should be created and added to our policy book. Okay. Another thing I think that's important to point out is that that the actions described in our environmental action plan draft, are not paid for. Some of them may be able to be funded in through a variety of state initiatives or other programs, but we've we're running a very tight budget at the school district. I'm sure the city understands that as well. And we've got to figure out how we're going to do some of these things. And then this deadline-driven bullet here, I think, is another thing that should be mentioned, because as we've opened this public comment window, and we did a special workshop for the Board of Education so that we could introduce to our own board this work and what we aspire to. It's become clear that some people consider this word plan to indicate that you have identified a responsible party, who's going to do the work, and you know exactly what they're going to do, and you have a deadline for them, and you have measures so that you can tell when their work has been done. And this draft plan is not that document. What we expect is that after this public comment window and a round of revisions within the committee, we will go back to the Board of Education with a plan that maybe will have a different name. Maybe it's going to be called, our guidelines, or there's a few other things we're kicking around that we may call it, because it is not going to contain deadlines and probably not measurables. So when we get it approved by the board that this is indeed what the board agrees that the district should be doing, then at that point, we would work on a prioritization process where the board and the public could weigh in on what exactly they want the district to attempt first. And as a matter of fact, it may not be up to either the board or the public, because there's a number of laws that you as a group are probably quite familiar with. And of course, our first priority as a district is to be in compliance with the laws. And so that may be our primary focus of attention is that. Okay, so now with all of that intro, I will say that the objective of the Albany Unified School District's Environmental Action Plan is a holistic approach to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, conserving water, providing healthy learning environments, and incorporating environmental studies within the TK through 12th grade curriculum. And now we'll start diving into the chapters. I am not going to read all of the slides here. I think they are in your packet. So chapter 2 was written by a member of your own committee, Nick Peterson, and it's a wonderful chapter on trying to achieve carbon neutral schools. Chapter 3 is an environmental purchasing program, which we already have some of the fundamentals are in place already, because when the district adopted the Collaborative for High Performance School Standards, there's an aspect of that has to do with products and sanitation and school cleaning products. So we already have a fair bit of this taken care of. Chapter 4, Healthy Schools, is a big topic. This includes indoor air quality, which we worked on a great deal in the past 2 years because of COVID. I'm happy to say that we have CO2 monitors in every classroom. Most of our classrooms at all of the new buildings have windows on 2 sides for good ventilation. And we've made some good strides there. So I just want to let you know that even though this is where we have a draft plan, this point now, the present. It doesn't mean that this is when the district began thinking about environmental action and climate adaptation. So this has been a topic in the district for a long time. Also within our Healthy Schools chapter, you'll see some actions related to green schoolyards. And also, of course, both the acoustically sound learning environment and our regular and consistent maintenance and housekeeping and the products used for that. Chapter 5, water resilience, is another key chapter. And zero waste is a big one, not necessarily in the length of the chapter, but in what it is trying to accomplish. So currently, we need to benchmark our waste and establish our waste diversion goals. And that is hard work that needs to be done. We are talking with Stop Waste, connecting our Director of Food Services with some people at Stop Waste that are talking about reusables in our schools, where we currently are not using reusables. So, Chapter 7, transportation, is one of our key areas of coordination with City of Albany because, of course, those bike lanes and crossing guards and safety for pedestrians are all key to getting our community to use active transportation modes in getting to school. We do not transport students in Albany, with the exception of a very few students that have special needs that are transported. But in general, we're different than many other school districts, and we own no buses. We only have a couple of vans. So when we're talking about transportation, it's mostly about how we encourage our populations to use active transportation. And then the final chapter is our educational programs, which is how we embed environmental knowledge and science about climate change into our curriculum. And that is also another area where almost all of the objectives have something like, like benchmark or establish a baseline understanding of current curriculum, because that's what we need to know first is where we stand. And for many of these objectives, we're not sure. We haven't had the data at hand. So we're looking forward to doing more with our educational programs and with our teachers to embed these practices. And it's not just within the curriculum, it's also just within the culture of the school. So this educational programs and our chapter 6 on zero waste have a lot to do with each other, because you have to change the school climate so that everybody knows that they're going to, take another 2 steps so that they can put that item in the correct bin to get it recycled or composted. And so there's issues around culture and curriculum where we need to have agreement and strong connection. I've mentioned before that this is the public comment window for this draft document. And we have alerted our community in a number of different ways, the school community. And I'm very happy to be here at this meeting so that we can begin to reach people that have no current connection to the district. Maybe they don't have children, or maybe their kids graduated a long time ago. But we are happy for the entire Albany community to give us feedback on our plan. The next steps, I think I've mentioned before, which is we need to get some staff feedback. We want continued community input. We're looking for a formal adoption by the board. Target January, might be February. And then after that, it's not like it's going to end there. We have that prioritization process that I mentioned earlier that will rev up at that point to help us further integrate the plan and the actions in the district's life. And lastly, I wanted to thank all of the members of the committee that worked so hard to get this draft prepared. And I want to thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you, Kim. I just want to remind the members of the committee that we'll first do questions, then public comment, and then we'll go into discussion, and members are able to make public or comments on this draft at any time as them representatives of themselves, not of the committee, through the channels that Kim shared. And I believe that are also a part of this agenda packet. And if not, I'll make sure to send those out. But there's no action to be taken by the committee this evening. Just some general feedback, but if you do want to make formal public comments on this document, do so as individuals, not in a committee session. Okay, but back to you, Chair Fasoon, for questions.
Yeah, I actually had a question. I'm going to leave my comments for discussion, but I recently I saw there was a section about green schoolyards. I actually did a portion of a statewide policy report on like greening public schools. I was curious your vision for greening schoolyards in AUSD and like how that would look in terms of implementation.
You know, I am not a green schoolyards expert by any means. I would say that the process that we're going to need to have is going to be one where people with knowledge and expertise help us. I think that what's in the plan is that we do see the need to develop a green schoolyard plan for each of our school sites. And and I fully support that, the creation of those plans. But I myself would not know exactly what to put in that plan. So I'm going to participate in that. But I am not going to, I'm not going to be the one that's going to lead that. I think that there are other people, that there are other knowledgeable voices around that that can handle doing that lift. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Going on to Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, thank you, Kim, for coming and presenting this. I think it's really great to see this come along, and having been involved with it, I realize, you know, like with any bureaucratic process, it's had its hurdles. I have a question about, you know, are there opportunities for the city and district to work together to gain advantages of maybe scale or other things on certain initiatives like solar power, fleet electrification, resilience improvements, things like that? I know I myself just personally would like to see more almost like a memorandum of understanding between the two entities as far as how we're approaching you know, our response on doing climate action. And I know that the Environmental Action Plan does have reference to the city climate action adaptation plan goals. So there is somewhat of a timeline implied in that, but it's really the broad high level timeline. But I see there's just a real opportunity, because we're a small city and because the district actually is the largest landowner in the city and has a lot of facilities that, you know, overlap with what the city is trying to accomplish also. So I just wonder if that's something that you see happening. Thank you.
Well, I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think that we've discussed very briefly within our committee meetings that designating some of the school gymnasiums as emergency shelters might enable the district to access programs where we would have energy storage, battery units or generators or things like that. And I think that's the thing that comes first to mind. I think there's many ways where the city and the district are kind of like, walking side by side, but maybe aren't talking as much as we should. And I hope that this is going to be one step in the direction of kind of closing that gap. Because I imagine that there are economies of scale and things that we could access together as a pair that we may not be able to do individually.
Member Mickey?
Kim, thank you so much for presenting tonight. I will save comments for later, but I did have a question. If it's possible to share today a link to where comments can actually be provided.
Oh, let me see. Do you have, there's no chat on this meeting. Perhaps I can email that to Ms. Karad, and then that can be put on screen.
Yes, I actually think I have it, so I will find that. It's another one that's a long URL. So let's see. I'm not sure. Is there a place, Kim, on AUSD's website where there would be a link to this?
It's in a bunch of different places, but let me try to get you the easiest one, because I feel sure that we have a tiny URL that I can send over.
Okay, cool.
Quickly. Yeah. And I guess I would, this may not be the right time, but as part of the answer to this question about, perhaps collaborations, I would like to say that that the district is also interested in getting information from the city about your next steps and what you're doing, because your climate adaptation plan is great, and all the executing it is complex, and so we would also love to hear what you guys have going on. And I know sometimes it can get separated into Transportation Commission or this meeting or that meeting, but we would love for it to be a two-way street.
Do we have any more questions? Okay. Can we remember Chen?
Yeah, I had a couple questions actually for city staff, which you may not have the answers to. So I guess I am curious. It seems like two of the areas within the AUSD Environmental Action Master Plan seem like they would sort of benefit from, sort of a shared approach with the city. In particular, the environmental purchasing program, I imagine, has many things in common with an environmental purchasing program that the city might undertake. And I think the water resilience program and maybe the electrical one sort of mentions measuring usage in ways that I'm sure that the city would also have an interest in understanding for municipal buildings. So I guess I'm curious if anybody from the staff can comment on either of those two measures in particular.
I can take the first stab. The environmental purchasing, we actually have a we have currently a somewhat decentralized purchasing system for office supplies and janitorial supplies. We have a contract with a janitor. Through that contract, there is procurement for janitorial supplies. And then we have our own internal procurement requirements that are actually directed by state mandate. The SB 1383, which I think is also a part of the AUSD plan. And to my knowledge, the city has different requirements than school districts for purchasing. So we have very strict rules about what we can purchase, what the recycled content is it recyclable? We have to track invoices, very complicated. And as a part of an effort that will kick off in 2023, we're going to have a consultant help us look at our internal purchasing policies to meet that mandate. So I think we'd need to start there. And then I think the other question was about water and electricity. I think those are more things we're trying on the city side to figure out, particularly with electric, what's going on at each of our buildings. And if we were to do any procurement, we work with East Bay Community Energy to do assessments to that extent in the electricity and climate action realm. So perhaps it could be an EBCE, AUSD city joint venture. And then the water, I really don't know much about water. I don't think that's really in our planning wheelhouse per se, but it would be a public works question and something we could look into. So I guess that long answer shows you it's a little bit more complicated, but something we could always explore.
Thanks, Lizzie.
Mm-hmm.
I had one more question, and this might just be due to my inexperience, but it sounds like to accomplish the environmental action plan, like Kim mentioned, will require a lot of resources from potentially the city. What measures can the city take to provide funding to the school district for this? It sounds like in the past, there's been several bonds that have been sort of proposed to undergo infrastructure improvements. Are there other ways that the city can raise revenue for these kinds of projects?
That would be a council question. So I honestly, I can't really speak to that this evening, but I think all decisions that have to do with funding and funding citywide projects and outside of city projects are council questions and ultimately council decisions. And you're right, through bond measures or through other measures, but we as staff can't direct any of those decisions.
Yeah, Kim, would you care to comment on that as well?
The district has well over 400 employees. And you can see that with running 5 different schools and all of the staff it takes to do that. So the school district's budget is it's a big number, you know. But the thing is that it's almost all, you know, it depends on the year, but it's usually between 80 and 87% of our budget goes to salary and benefits. So we're really people heavy. And it's just the remaining small portion that's spent on stuff. And some of that stuff is some of the stuff that we're talking about, you know, it's those products, those consumable products that we go through. So I think that the funding is, it's a tough question. I mean, sometimes you need a person to do something that's related to sustainability. And sometimes you need a policy to direct people on exactly what to do to make sure that what they're doing fits within the guidelines of the plan. So I guess I'm saying that I'm not sure that that the school district would look for the city, towards the city in terms of providing funding. But I do think that there might be some economies that we could look at, and some collaborations that could be fruitful on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for both of those really thoughtful answers. And that's all the questions I have.
Anyone else have any questions? If not, we can move on to public comment and then discussion. Okay, I think no more questions. Should we open it up for public comment?
Yes.
Awesome.
I do see one member of the public with their hand raised. Jeremiah?
Yes, thank you. So I got to put this Warriors game on pause. No, just kidding. Hey, so, you know, I was thinking about a nature area for each school, some sort of nature area. I know the school districts keeps putting in these AstroTurf, fake grass playgrounds. And there's just less and less open space of actual nature. And so some sort of little nature area to where kids could, you know, plant trees or have a little community garden inside there. I know Cornell School just had the new playground built up. And in the southwest corner on Cornell, just below the gate, there's a little area where the kickball court used to be in that corner. And when the people were installing the water pipes, the water lines underneath there, I was talking to them, and they went ahead and installed a couple other water lines underneath there. So that way, if the Cornell Elementary School wanted to turn that little corner into a little community garden or educational garden, they could. Also, I was just wondering about, you know, obviously installing more solar panels around the schools, things like that. I think would be great. Let's see here. Let me check my notes. Oh yeah. So with this whole street tree or tree active plan, to where it's some sort of website log, to where, you know, you guys presented in the meeting a couple days ago with your Civic Spark person. I was just wondering if the school district can do a tree inventory themselves, because the city was kind of focusing on their own street trees, but there was kind of an open space to where if the school district, if you did your own tree inventory, counted your trees, mapped them out, something like that, you could submit that and have that be an attachment along with the city's website of the master tree plan. So I would just advise the school district to make your own tree inventory. That would add to our greenscape for everything. Also, yeah, maybe some raised planter boxes. If the school's already built and it's too much money to dig up the ground and do new garden areas, please explore the opportunities of raised planter boxes with water collecting tanks, possibly coming from the rain gutters, from the roofs. But yeah, that's another option, raised planter boxes with water capture facilities. Thanks.
Okay. Lucinda?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Trutain. I feel that an environmental action plan for our schools is very much needed and overdue, given the climate crisis that we are in the midst of. I think it's especially important for an educational institution to really model sustainability. You know, the purpose of our schools is to prepare our kids for the future. So I'm very happy to see this finally happening. I know you did say that there are no, if I understand, there are no target dates for action in the plan. The city's action plan and all other um, environmental or climate action plans that I've seen have target dates. And that is some concern to me. I know you said that that's not the purpose of the plan, but without some kind of target, I ask how meaningful this plan is going to be. A plan's only meaningful to the extent it's implemented. So that is a concern that, this ultimately may be no more than greenwash to make the public think that the school district is working on sustainability when really there's nothing happening. So that's the one concern I have, that the lack of target dates, lack of any kind of measurable, for the public to see that something has been implemented. But thank you. I think this is certainly a start. And I also agree with what Councilmember Peterson mentioned about the importance of exploring some unity between the city's work and the school district's work. And I seem to recall for Cougar Field is a shared between the school district and the city, and there's actually an agreement between the two regarding the allocation of responsibility for Cougar Field. So I think there is, some precedent here for the two entities working together. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other members of the public with their hand raised.
Okay, it looks like we can go on to discussion.
And I did thank you, Kim, for sending me the link to the comment form. I'll send that to all Climate Action Committee members, and I'll find a way to get it out to the members of the public as well.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
I was thinking about it. Thank you, Ms. Lava. I did want to mention that all of the schools do have school gardens, and they all do have access to natural dirt areas that are planted. Cornell's garden is on the Talbot side, and not on the Cornell side. And there are planted areas at Cornell, as well as the other schools. The middle school garden just got a huge cleanup. You may not realize that it is the separate fenced area along the cul-de-sac beside the school. We do have green areas as well as the hard top, the asphalt areas. So we're trying to strike a balance. And I also wanted to comment that even though this iteration of the plan may not have deadlines in it, that I fully expect that once we get this adopted by the board, that the next round where we identify priorities would not just, would be much more practical. We're going to do this, and we're going to do it by this date, and we're going to know we've done it because we're going to, it's going to be measurable. So I think that those are coming. And currently we are adhering to the CHIPS guidelines for our schools and for all of the renovations that are happening at our existing buildings, even if they weren't built by bond measures B and E. So I think that there's a sincere effort on the part of the district to make this real. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can kind of kick off discussion. I did have some points. I especially really like the point about natural light. I know a lot of students when we're in class at the high school, the like fluorescent lighting gives them headaches after a while, and it kind of just I see committee member Mohammed nodding her head. Yeah, sometimes it really gets to us and gives us headaches and makes it hard to focus. So I'm in full support of the natural light. And another point I wanted to make was how much I appreciate the focus around climate literacy. And we actually have a subcommittee that committee member Mohammed and I are on. And it's kind of in parallel with the EAP's plan to expand climate education K through 12. So I think there are a lot of parallels there. And otherwise, I'm very excited that the city is taking such strides to in climate action and environmental action. So yeah, full support. I'll bump it over by screen who I see in order, starting with committee member Peterson.
Yeah, so along the funding lines, I think the city and the district are facing similar limited budget issues, but I've been attending some seminars that are put on by, it used to be the local government council. I forget what Civic Well is what they're called now. And they have a monthly meetings where they go over funding opportunities that are coming down. And the statement that came up in the last one is that there's just a plethora of funding coming down the pipeline from the feds, especially from the Infrastructure Act and also from the Inflation Reduction Act. And that these are going to be all pumped out through various state agencies and whatever. So I think what's really going to be key is trying to tap in. And I know people immediately say, oh, no, that's only for disadvantaged and whatever communities. Yes, there's set-asides, but they're reasonable set-asides. They're not 100%. So Albany will qualify for some of these funds. And it's very important that there be people who are monitoring this and preparing grant proposals and tracking what's coming down. We just can't wait till the last minute and then come up with some ideas. We need to get ahead of the curve on this. And I'm just wondering, I think the city and the school district administrations could put their heads together on this and at least maybe together hire a grant person between the two of them to really put out, just focus 100% on that and get that information out there. Putting that, trying to get, I know city staff, and I'm pretty sure district staff are overwhelmed with the multiple hats they wear and all the things they're doing. They don't have time to really put the effort in to know. It's very complicated too. And there are a lot of hurdles, and there's they're coming up. Some of them are going by, and you have to get these things in by certain dates and have certain amounts of information. So it's a big task. And I'm just curious how this is being addressed by both administrations and both school and city.
I can start. We're on all kinds of listservs where we get information about funding, and we do look at funding opportunities to assess if it's a project we have plans for, if it's a project that makes sense for our climate action plan, and if we qualify for the funding. That's a key piece. There have been a few grants that have come to our desks lately that we do not qualify for. And so you are correct, there's more funding coming, and it will likely be easier to qualify for that. And we are keeping our eye on it.
With all due respect, I don't think the city staff has the bandwidth to do this. And I'm not saying that you're not competent. I'm just saying this is huge. It needs a dedicated person. It's a full-time job. And I think between the district and the city, you should have someone doing that, because they could bring in millions. And you guys, I mean, it's just, I don't quite buy, we haven't gotten any as far as I know. And, we've gotten some funds before and then they haven't been spent, and what we were trying to do didn't happen. So I think there's an opportunity here to put the administration together and have, a person that really focuses on this, that has the skill set to, go after funding. It's a very unique thing. And, with all due respect, I don't think we have it in-house in either the city or the district from what I've seen.
I think my comment remains what it was earlier. No further comment.
Nick, if you're looking for a comment from me, I don't think that the district knows about a grant program when somebody brings it to our attention. Honestly, that's how it works. The construction project managers, Derivia Castellano Architects, they have, since they've been working with us for 6 years now on these B&E projects, they have brought things to our attention that we have qualified for because they're in the construction business and they know what's coming down the pike. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I think the district relies on school services, which is a company that our chief business official is in frequent contact with, and they kind of keep their radar out for things they think that we might qualify for, or frankly, people like you who might be kind of tapped into the energy area and who might see things that could help us out.
Yeah, I kind of feel we're kind of going like this. I'm not asking you to justify how you do it now. I'm just saying, I think having someone that is much more skilled at this, that really understands it and is dedicated, could pay their own way. And I'm just, I'm kind of surprised that, just muddling along how we normally do is the only option we have. I mean, it seems like, we're at this moment where there's intense amount of funding becoming available and the window could close on it. And a lot of it's focused on climate change. It's focused on resilience. It's focused on all these things. And, I don't see our respective administrations really addressing that other than saying, well, we keep our eyes and you guys look out. I can't do it. I'm not a grant writing specialist. I'm not tapped in at all. And yet I see all this stuff. So it seems like having someone that's tasked to that and putting sharing that resource between the two administrations would be it would pay dividends, but I don't know maybe I need to suggest that to council members.
I'll bring your suggestion back to the district and pitch it.
Thank you.
Committee member Mickey.
Thank you, Chair Fisson. Tim, I know you said that the name will change, but I felt like I had to raise this issue. I've been working for 22 years in the architecture and urban design field, and the term master shows up in lots of different places. And I know in particular for the last decade, our firm has been trying to remove that word from our term. So we no longer use the term master bedroom. We say primary bedroom. And wherever possible, we try to remove the word master from master plan. And so I understand the name will change, and I would hope to see that the term master would be removed. Environmental action plan stands on its own. Environmental action goals and aspirations report works as well. But I feel pretty strongly that we should make every effort to remove that word unless required by something in the school board's bylaws or something where the term has to be used. I would ask that the bylaws be changed, but I forgot to mention earlier in the meeting that I was able to attend when this document was presented, and I was very excited. I was actually very excited about the stage that it's in right now. I thought I had missed every notification about a plan that had been worked on for the last 2 years, and so I was very excited about that. And sitting through the process, it helped me really understand some questions I've had for a long time. Really excited to see the 2 new schools are solar ready. Really excited to see that they're going to be some of the most seismically safe buildings in our city. And also the idea that when the largest publicly owned piece of land in the city of Albany is our public roads, the next biggest piece of land is, if it's not second, it's third. It's what the school district owns and maintains. And so the idea that the school district and the city should be working more closely together, I think, and on so many levels makes a lot of sense. I would encourage that Chapter 2 not only be about sustainability, but about resiliency. So definitely it's sustainability about the everyday use of the school, but in terms of the long-term resiliency, again, as being some of the most seismically safe buildings in the city, they are also likely to be the safest buildings for us if there's ever a major earthquake. And that is one place where I think, I know my understanding is that the school district is doing a solar feasibility study across the entire school district. I don't know what the results will be but I think an absolute short-term measure where the city and the school could work together is the idea of maybe the school can't get the funds to make every building solar powered. But in the short term, perhaps the city and the school can work together to get grants to make this the schools at least prepared for a disaster and have some solar and battery backup. Mm-hmm. So those were my comments. I think there were a lot of other comments that were great today about raised planter boxes. Jeremiah brought a bunch of things. Lucinda's points about dates, totally understand, but I appreciate you helping us understand where this plan is and where it is going in the future.
Thank you, and I appreciate your comment about trying to get rid of that master plan. That was done to align it with the facilities master plan that was passed in 2013, and times have changed, and I appreciate your perspective there. I think we can change it.
Committee Member Mohammed.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to comment on the chapter about implementing climate literacy into the curriculum. I think that's really important, and I'm really interested to know more about this. I really want to see what you guys have in store in your next actions for your plan. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm wondering if perhaps, because it sounds like both you and your chairperson were involved in a statewide policy group about some of the
me. That was just like an individual unrelated to the Climate Action Committee.
Well, I would love to meet with you guys separately or together and have some time to talk about these issues more in depth, because we've all got certain connections to other groups and knowledge that we can bring in, and now's the time to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Going on, Committee Member Chen. Oh, do you have any? Sorry, I don't know why it said you were raising your hand. Committee Member Melgen, do you have anything to add?
Just a thought, is it possible to find a consultant who would work along the lines that Committee Member Peterson suggested and be paid a percentage of the funding that he or she wins?
I don't know. That's a good question, but I'm not sure.
I think an important thing to remember for both us and Kim is we can't make decisions just as staff on our own. They're board or council decisions. So these are decisions that could be explored by governing bodies if they were to come up. But we can't answer those questions this evening, just a reminder.
Has everyone on the committee had an opportunity to speak?
I do think committee member Larson is in the audience.
Oh,
Here is on screen. Committee member Larson, if you would like to speak to this item, you should be able to unmute yourself.
And in order to do that on the phone, you press *6, I believe, in case member Larson doesn't know that.
Thanks, Michelle. Maybe not.
Hi.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay. It's a good test, but I didn't have any questions or comments.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, if there are no other questions or comments, thank you so much, Kim, for joining us. I did email the committee the link to make comments. So please use that link and share in your networks to spread the word. And I will find out a way to make sure the link is on the agenda packet. So we will look into that first thing tomorrow.
Thank you and bye.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, Chair Fasoon, back to you.
Are we ready to go on to the next item?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so it looks like we can go on to item 6-1, which is the discussion of proposed changes to net energy metering policy in California.
Yes. And there originally was not going to be a staff presentation, but because there was a quiet release of the CPUC's net energy metering new updated proposal last Thursday, we did pull some information directly from the CPUC's fact sheet and from the proposal that we'd just like to run by the committee before we get started to provide additional context. Like I said, for full disclosure, this is just information taken directly from the CPUC's website, and they're just the facts of what are presented in the proposal, but then we will turn it over to the subcommittee and any other members of the committee who would like to speak on this item. Okay. So for just some very, very brief information, in case there are any members of the public who are here who are not familiar with the discussion this evening, net energy metering is a program in California that allows people with rooftop solar panels to sell their excess energy back to the grid when it's being generated. Current NEM systems pay full retail rates based on time of use rates for each kilowatt hour exported back to the solar generators. Surplus payments are paid at market rate, and it allows homeowners to benefit from solar generation even when they are not actively using it. So if they're not using the energy, they're selling it back to the grid. And as it stands currently, there are no explicit incentives for storage. That doesn't mean someone couldn't choose to pair it with storage, but there just are no existing incentives for storage. There are about 500 NEM customers in Albany and over 1 million in California. So it's a huge program. The new proposal was released last Thursday, November 10th. This new proposal shows that it could save residential NEM customers around $100 a month and residential solar and battery customers, so those who pair their solar with battery, about $136 per month. There's no impact to the earning potential for existing rooftop solar customers. It maintains the existing compensation rates. And with this new proposal, it allows for an average 9-year payoff for both low income and standard customers. That low income 9-year payoff is achieved through some incentives and monetary programs that are directed directly to low income customers. It does limit solar systems to 150% of a building's current electricity usage to cover current electricity consumption as well as future electricity consumption. So what's probably the topic for discussion this evening is there are proposed changes to the price structures Under this new proposal, residential electricity rates are intended to incentivize using electricity during peak generation. The new credit structure is intended to incentivize pairing solar with storage. There's a credit back to NEM customers based on an avoided cost of buying clean electricity elsewhere. And the credit amounts vary by month, hour, and weekday versus weekend, as well as season. And it encourages solar customers to store electricity, sell it back to the grid during peak demand, low generation, so after sunset. The credit will likely decline around 70% from 30 cents per kilowatt hour to around 8 cents per kilowatt hour. And critics of the new proposal argue that this will disincentivize solar installation. And this new proposal does eliminate the monthly grid connection fee that was proposed in the last iteration of this proposal. So as far as next steps for this evening, I know that the subcommittee wanted to present a resolution that they prepared. There may also be a presentation by another member of the committee. Any member of the committee is able to speak to this item, but the goal for the evening, I believe, is to either recommend or not recommend that council send a letter in favor of or in opposition to the current changes to the NEM proposal. It can be based on the NEM subcommittee proposal provided as attachment 1. If the motion carries, staff will prepare a staff report and take the resolution to council in December. And at any time, I think this is important, individual CAC members may provide public comment to the CPUC on their own behalf, not as representatives of the Climate Action Committee. The new NEM proposal will be heard by the CPUC likely at their December 15th meeting, but it's possible later we'll know 10 days in advance of that CPUC meeting. I will leave it there and see if there are any questions. And I will also say that Michelle and I both looked into it. Neither of us are experts. We do not know how to answer many questions many folks have about NEM. We just wanted to present the facts based on what we read in the proposal. So if you ask us a question we do not know the answer to, we will tell you that and encourage you to look it up. Any questions?
Committee Member Mickey?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to check, in your slide you mentioned limits to 150% of customers' electricity usage. And I just want to clarify that I think when I put solar panels in my building, I was not allowed to do more than 100%. So is it correct to say that that is, while it is a limit, it is actually an increase compared to what current NEM says?
That's a great question. I don't actually know.
Okay.
I just know that
that one either. Sorry.
Yeah, I just know that the new proposal.
Yeah, I see also in their write-up it says allow solar systems to cover 150. I think that is an increase from 100% to 150%. But I thought
I know
well,
that
I will save comment for later.
I know there have been specifically there was some comments about allowing for future electrification of the home, so being able to supersize the system. So I do think it's probably an increase, but I don't know for certain.
Member Chen?
Yeah, not a question, but I guess to try to structure the discussion a little bit, because this has been a pretty fast-moving issue. I guess there's kind of a question for Chair Fasoon. To organize the discussion, should we begin by perhaps talking about the new changes to the NEM policy that were released, as well as the memo presented by Committee Member Melgen? Follow that up with maybe a decision on whether to proceed with making a statement or not, and then spend the remainder of the time sort of deciding what that resolution should say, if anything, if we decide to move in that direction.
I do think that I see what you're saying about structuring it. At some point, we will have to weave public comment in before the text of the resolution is adjusted, I would think, to make sure that any public comment is reflected in the edited text. So perhaps just sneaking in the public comment right before your last step. Does that sound good to you, Chair Fasoon?
Yes.
Okay.
Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, I know we usually do questions and then public comment and then discussion, but I think it would be good to put all the information out before the public comment so the public can get the information, especially Mark's information, and comment on that. Otherwise, the public is going to be locked out unless they've actually read the attachments. So I'm not sure if that violates procedural requirements or whether we can do that. But I like what Daniel Chen suggested, Member Chen suggested, which is that we go through this process of just put the thing forward so everyone knows what we're talking about, get public comment, and then go into discussion. So
yeah, I think that's fine. I think we can just collect questions after each individual presentation. So if there are no other questions on what staff prepared, then we can move into the next one, questions. Next one, questions. And a little bit of discussion, I guess. That's the question. We're really supposed to refrain from that because all discussion is supposed to be informed by public comment. So before anyone expresses what they would want to see reflected in the resolution, public comment should be heard.
Mm-hmm.
But if there are no other questions for me, up to the committee who would like to present next. Or to Chair Fasoon. It's your meeting.
I'll volunteer to make some brief statements on the draft resolution at this time. So the draft resolution is in the agenda packet. Several comments I did want to make. The resolution was crafted by the subcommittee before the CPUC came out with a revised NEM 3 proposal. It's actually funny. I think we sort of finalized everything, hit send to Lizzie, and then, like an hour later, the new information came out. So it is not reflected with the new information from the NEM 3 policy. It is modeled a little bit after several municipalities that are adjacent to us. And I've included those as reference in the memo. I'm not going to sort of read through the resolution, but yeah, those are just some quick comments on, I guess, how the resolution was prepared and maybe just some of the timelines about it. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that the committee has about the draft resolution.
I see Mark raising his hand. Chair Fasoon, do you want to call on members?
Yeah. Are we just doing discussion right now, or
still questions? So any questions for Committee Member Chen? Or if there are no questions, then we could go to Committee Member Melgen's statement.
Okay, Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, I appreciated staff's sort of summary. Is there any way we can get, I've looked at this, I have my own opinions on it, and what the changes are. I could kind of share that, but I'm hesitant. That seems to be getting into discussion. But, it would have been nice if we had kind of a matrix or something that said, this was here before. Like, I know the connection fee is gone now, although there's something embedded in the fee structure for solar that would have a $15 a month charge. So there's still kind of something, but it's reduced. And then they did still honor grandfathering clauses for NEM 1 and NEM 2, which is good. But the impact on future solar ones is still about a 75% reduction in what, and from information I've heard from other sources, essentially doubles the payback time. So it's going to have a big impact on the solar industry. But anyway, it didn't sound like you guys had sort of a summary of the differences. It was just sort of, here's what they're now proposing, but you just had to figure out on your own what the differences were. But
yeah, we only did a summary of what's in the new proposal.
okay.
No analysis of what was in the previous one. If members of the committee would like to, during this presentation phase, present what we may have missed, please do.
Okay, well, that was just my comments on that in regards to what Member Chen had raised, is that, you know, we have this proposal out for the old version, but I think the new version is still a pretty substantial change in the NEM policy and will have a big impact. Frankly, it would be the least favorable NEM program in the country now compared with other ones in other states. So.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Or presentations to make? We're kind of doing an amalgamated version of the standard structure. I think it would be, the way I see it in my head is, we know there were 3 presentations. Everyone should present questions on those presentations, public comment, then discussion. So if anyone has questions on anything previously presented or anything new to present, this is the period in which to do it.
Okay.
It's a little confusing, a little not standard, but I do know that committee member Melgen had something he wanted to share based on his memo. And I don't know if the subcommittee wanted to present anything else during this period. Okay, I'm seeing no's. Okay. So perhaps Chair Fasoon, if you want to turn it over to committee member Melgen.
Yeah. Committee member Melgen, feel free to go.
Thank you. I'm not sure of the appropriate order. I do have some comments on the draft resolution that was put forward. There's one of the whereas statements refers to a report that was put up by the California Energy Commission. So I contacted them and they gave me some comments back. I'd like to share those. And I looked into what some of the municipal utilities in California have done with regard to their NEM programs. I think it would be worth sharing those. And then there are some comments from various people about the document the PUC just released, the proposed decision. And I think it would be good to share those as well. And then on top of all of that, there's that long piece that I submitted that you've all seen already. So help me out here. What do you think would be the right thing to do?
I think you can present any facts and information you have at this time, and then we'll take any questions, and then we'll take public comment, and then we'll go into a discussion of how all members on this committee anticipate all the information presented affecting the resolution as it stands.
Well, let me start then. Maybe I can put off my presentation till later, and maybe we won't even get to it tonight. That's the breaks. But I do want to present some details about the draft resolution that the subcommittee prepared. So let me get to that. And let's see, here it is.
Are you having trouble sharing your screen?
Yeah. Well, first off, yeah, I'll do share screen. And then
If you haven't found it, if you hover over the bottom, it's a green box with a black arrow pointing upwards.
What I'd prefer, Lizzie, if you don't mind, is would you put up the resolution, the draft resolution?
Yes.
And go to the bottom of the first page?
Mm-hmm. Can you all see this? Bottom of the first page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. So I contacted the California Energy Commission, specifically the technical lead on the joint agency report person. Oh, now, what the hell is going on here? And she told me that that's just not an accurate representation of what's in that report. And she provided language as an alternative. I should mention, well, I don't want to go into that much detail. So I'll just read what she said, if I can find it here. A lot of things open on my screen right now.
I'm going to stop the screen share so that everyone can see each other.
Okay. Okay. And I apologize for the slowness here. Okay. I got it finally. So this is an email from Alicia Gutierrez at the California Energy Commission. She was the technical lead on that report that is mentioned in the proposed resolution. And she says, and I quote, "The report does not say that California cannot meet SB 100 without more customer-side solar." She suggests and I can email this to Lizzie separately, but she says, whereas California must pursue a diverse set of resources, including solar and storage together, to meet its clean energy targets in time, and needs to sustain a build rate that is triple the historical build rate for solar, as reported by the California Energy Commission SB 100 report. So in other words, at a bare minimum, that whereas statement needs to be greatly modified or just deleted. Let's see, well, maybe I'll just keep on going. I think it would be worth mentioning what other utilities have done. Modesto has its own municipal utility, which is not under the jurisdiction of the California Public Utilities Commission. It has its own board, it sets its own rates. They had something like the original net energy metering, and they ended it on December 31st, 2016. They were worried about the cost shift. It's confusing because what they adopted is what to them is NEM 2.0. But the guts of it are that power that is sent back from solar panels into the grid is credited at 7.6 cents per kilowatt hour, not 30 cents per kilowatt hour. That's the key. And that's the crux of the proposed decision by the PUC right now. Are the people sending power into the grid going to be paid 30 cents or 7 cents or 8 cents or whatever? But is there going to be a huge drop or not? Well, that's something that Modesto did at the end of 2016. And that's something that the Sacramento Municipal Utility District did in March of this past year. Same idea. The reason is the whole idea of NEM is to give a break to people who put rooftop solar up by having the PUC shift costs to people who don't have solar panels. And let me just mention here, I have an article from the San Francisco Examiner, which includes reactions to the PUC's proposal. So I'll just read the one from an attorney at the Utility Reform Network. And let me just mention who they are. This is TURN, and this is the biggest ratepayer group in Northern California, and they have a lot of clout. About 10, 15 years ago, the head of TURN was actually named a PUC commissioner and served a term as a commissioner. His name is Michael Florio. But anyway, the attorney for TURN, Matthew Friedman, says that the revision, quote, continues to drive up electricity bills for the 90% of residential customers that don't own solar, unquote. And the problem here is that the NEM as it's structured rewards Peter by putting more costs on Paul. And as we go along, there are more and more Peters and fewer Pauls. That's the nub of the issue here. That's probably, I probably said enough. I do want to give people a chance to chime in on this. So maybe I'll just hand the gavel over to whoever wants it now.
I'll just do a quick point of order. We'll, if anyone has questions for Mark, ask those questions now. If anyone has comments on what Mark is saying, save that for after public comment. And please note the time, it's 8:42. So at some point between now and 9 p.m., we will have to have someone make a motion to extend the meeting. Doesn't have to be right now, but I will interrupt the group within the next 18 minutes to do it. Okay. Chair Fasoon, I'll let you call on folks.
Yeah. Committee Member Chen.
Yeah, I'd actually had a couple questions for Member Melgen on the memo that you presented to the committee. I actually thought it was super helpful. Thank you for raising the level of discussion on this. I was curious about for curtailment. My understanding is that the curtailment situation throughout California as a whole may differ significantly from the curtailment situation for, let's say, Alameda County or for Albany in particular. I was curious if you had any sense of whether solar curtailment is happening in Alameda County or with Albany.
I don't know. My point is that because curtailment is happening, we are getting less carbon emission reduction than we would all hope for.
That makes a lot of sense. One other question I had was, I guess, on sort of point 5. I was curious if, well, as an expert on power systems and utility, I was curious whether you're aware of coincident peak costs for PG&E and whether Albany would be affected by that for supply from PG&E.
I don't understand the question. Please try that again.
Yeah, my understanding is that for PG&E to procure power, oftentimes there's an agreement where a power supplier will provide energy at a rate that is proportional to the coincident peak load for a particular set of customers. And I'm curious if that is something that affects us.
I'm not aware of that arrangement. I guess it's worth mentioning first off that PG&E's energy procurement is really separate from the transmission, all the wires business. And I don't know what the numbers are right now. It's maybe 50% of the people who use PG&E's wires also buy electric energy from PG&E's energy procurement. Might even be lower than that by now, but I'm not familiar with what you're talking about. By the way, I should also mention all of the power is bid into and bought from the markets run by the California Independent System Operator.
Okay, and then I guess the final question I had, I was curious if there was an estimate in any of your research around resilience costs. I know that's kind of been a big point of discussion for a lot of utilities, as well as just a pressing issue for many members of the public who are concerned about wildfires and things of this nature, especially given, I guess, power safety shutoff events in recent years.
I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but I personally, I was shocked. PG&E plans to spend about $10 billion on undergrounding distribution lines. This is in their corporate sustainability report. And I don't recall if they said it was over 7 years, over 9 years, whatever. But I mean, it's a massive sum of money. And to me, I mean, so to some people, Fed maybe $1 billion here, $1 billion there, whatever. But it really sounds like a lot of money to me.
Thanks so much. I think that's all the questions I had from the memo.
Okay, thank you.
On mute. Other questions or facts to present before we go to public comment and then discussion? I'm not seeing any. So Chair Fasoon, up to you if you want to open it to public comment.
Yeah, let's open it up, and then we should probably make a motion to extend the meeting after public comment.
Yes, thank you. Okay, Lucinda?
Yes, I just had a comment. I'm a little confused of this argument or position that committee member Melgen presented. The analogy that Peter is taking from Paul, and why is that when my understanding is, for example, PG&E for the 12 months ending June 2022 had almost 17 billion in profits. So why is it that that this is being presented as the rooftop solar users like myself, who is middle income and really went on a limb financially to be able to afford rooftop solar, why it's now presented that I am somehow taking from the non-solar users. So I find that when I went out on a limb to do this financially, because it was the right thing to do and because I am deeply concerned about climate change and I want to do my part. And at the same time, PG&E made $17 billion. And it seems to me that they are presenting this as if I am somehow benefiting off low-income people or people who cannot afford solar, when at the same time PG&E has made this incredible profit. So that's one of my concerns. And also, I just don't think it's factoring in that we are in a climate crisis and we need to do everything possible to address this. And that includes rooftop solar. I know drawdown, which the drawdown studies that address the 100 most important things to do to address the climate crisis, rooftop solar is up there as one of the most important solutions. So thank you.
Okay. I think we should get through all public comments, and then if there are responses, respond at that time. If any other member of the public would like to speak to this item, please raise your hand. I don't see any other members of the public with their hand raised. So back to you, Chair Fasoon, to open it up to discussion.
Yeah, can we make a motion to extend first before we start discussing?
Yes.
I move that we extend for another 30 minutes to, what would that be? We're at
9:20.
9:20.
I'll second that.
Yeah. All right. Committee Member Chen?
Aye.
Committee Member Melgen?
Aye.
Committee Member Mickey?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mohammed?
Aye.
Committee Member Peterson?
Aye.
Chair Fasoon?
Aye.
And Committee Member Larson?
Aye.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to discussion. We can start with Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, so I think some of this enters into philosophical, but yeah, I think Lucinda Young brought up a good point. I mean, we have a monopolistic system here and it's regulated. You know, we kind of have a over 100-year-old system where these municipal, where the monopolistic utilities are allowed to have sort of 100% market share in order to and get certain incentives and profits in order to make sure that they keep expanding the system and maintain it properly and whatever. But I don't think getting into the that's sort of a 20th century one, getting in the 21st century and with climate change, trying to move that to a more sustainable and decarbonized grid becomes problematic. A lot of the information I've collected on this really shows there are benefits to having a more distributed system, which goes against what this whole existing monopolistic system is, a centralized big generation locations moving long distance power lines, which make big profits. So this 10,000 miles of undergrounding will of course be new infrastructure and have guaranteed profits. So that's a big moneymaker for the investor-owned utilities and their shareholders. They're also reaping really large profits, and they see the solar generation by rooftop solar as being a direct competition to them because it minimizes the need to build these long distance power lines as more of that goes in, and you don't need to do as much transferring around of the power. Also, I'm really concerned that their solution to the fact that supposedly wealthier people can afford it and poor people can't is to make it where only wealthy people can afford it and the utilities who will build the large scale centralized ones on probably farmland and sensitive desert land, and then build those long distance power lines, which they make huge profits on, to feed into us, and nobody in the cities where the roofs are already there waiting to have this solar will happen. So it sort of kills the crowdsourcing aspect that we need that does disrupt the monopolistic system and makes it not as profitable. So I think it's a little, I think the utilities are pretty savvy. They have good advisors. They have people that legal representation and paid consultants that can manipulate these arguments and put them forward that really guise the fact that no, they're making big profits off us, and the real cost shift is to all ratepayers to provide these profits to the utilities. And it's hard, I don't fault them for that. They're in it for the money. They're in it for getting returns back to their shareholders. They know if they can get the dividends back on their common shares, the common share stock will go up. It used to be at 70, it's down at 14 now, although it's really coming back. These are the issues that they prioritize over the climate crisis, over democratization of access to solar power. And they try to do a divide and conquer where they pit, they claim it's wealthy. In fact, if you look at the latest Lawrence Berkeley Lab study on the state of the solar rooftop industry, 43% of rooftop solar that went in I think it was 2021 or so, is really within moderate income and lower. In fact, more rooftop solar was installed on homes owned by people making less than $50,000 a year than were installed on homes of people making more than $250,000 a year. So, the whole idea of NEM, although Mark would have you say it was just to throw a bunch of money at people and reward them, it was to encourage distributed power and to encourage the development of solar so that the prices would come down. And it worked beautifully. Prices have come down. And now finally, we're getting to the point where lower income people and moderate income people can afford it. And right at this point, we're going to tank it. We're going to go from having one of the really very successful NEM programs to the worst NEM program as far as benefiting rooftop solar in the nation. And it is just, in my mind, it's just wrong. It's not where we should be going. And I wholly disagree with Mark's analysis. It's completely verbatim what has come from the investor-owned utilities, which isn't surprising because Mark worked for 30 years for PG&E, and I don't hold that against him. And I understand he's very wedded to that system, but we've got to do something different, and we've got to get all hands on deck. I oppose pulling out the statement from the California Energy Commission. It didn't specifically say that, but we do need to triple all clean energy. And with solar, half solar is rooftop. If you cut that out and you don't do that anymore, it's de-incentivized, then it's wholly on the investor-owned utilities, and they're not going to be able to put in enough for us to make our goals. So we need the rooftop solar too. And at this point, we're going to tank a 60,000 employee industry that needs to be encouraged. Federal government is encouraging it. State government wants to encourage it. We require solar systems to be put on all new homes built now. And now it's not going to be as beneficial. So I still think, even with this new system, it's still a 70% reduction in the benefits. Everyone talks about these numbers. Oh, we're paying them 30 cents kilowatt hour. You're taking an average. I put my own system on my home. My power goes direct to me over no lines that any utility owns. And I should be able to offset at retail rate for that, which I get to do. And then everything else is given to if I do excess, it's given to the utility. And I did that for a while, and they paid me 3 cents a kilowatt hour. So someone's combining these numbers together. The utilities see my use of my own power from my own system that they had nothing to do with, other than it will eventually maybe send them some power, is to say, you're robbing power from me that I can't charge you for, which is, yeah, but I built my own system and I paid for it entirely myself. So this is the democratization of energy generation. And I think Californians deserve access to the sun, and the utilities are just going to have to suffer losses in their profits. That's just how it goes.
Committee member Mickey.
Thank you. Can I share my screen? I just want to make sure that everyone's seeing the language that I'm referencing.
You should be able to share your screen.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Let's see if I'm sharing the correct. Oh, okay. So
You can see it.
Perfect. So I'm going to be honest. I do not have the depth of understanding that Committee Member Melgen or Committee Member Peterson has. So I am perhaps committing an error here and just going by what NEM 3 says. But I think, from my perspective, I see improvements in the current program that we have. I will not speak to some of the things that Member Peterson has raised as concerns, but allowing solar systems to cover 150% of customers' electricity usage, I think that's a pretty important step moving forward. I know when our household thought about doing solar, we waited 18 months to make sure that our EV was being charged at our house, so that we could offset 100% of the power that we expected to use. So that was, that for us meant that we waited an extra 18 months before putting solar panels on our house. So I think that's an improvement. Sorry, this is the last bullet point. The second to last bullet point, I like that they are making proactive efforts to help low-income customers have access to solar. So again, I see that as an improvement. The third, sorry, I don't know why I'm going backwards, but I'm going backwards on this list for all those following me. Provide electricity bill credits to residential customers. My reading of this is that what they're saying is that customers who sign up in the next 5 years will still be able to pay off their system in 9 years. I'm not going to question their math. I think what I worry about in the details is that only applies for the next 5 years, right? And so if you apply to get solar panels installed in year 6, you are going to be under the new system, which will have a much lower rate of return. And so I have concerns there that about the limitations on that it's only for the next 5 years. I won't comment on the other ones because I think those were my primary things. I think we've heard a lot of discussion about maybe the things that are not so great in NEM 3, the original NEM, the previous NEM 3 and this NEM 3. I think there are some things that are better in this version, but there are still some concerns that at least on these topics that I can pinpoint, I have some concerns about. Sorry, and for that's it for me. Sorry.
Okay. Do you mind stopping screen share just so we can see the grid view? Great, thank you.
Committee Member Chen?
Yeah, I did want to make a couple points that I found interesting from a lot of the material that was presented. One thing that I noticed from the fact sheet that Lizzie and Michelle sent out was that even though we are in a PG&E service territory, we are served by a CCA, and they do ultimately set the tariff that Albany residents see. So in some sense, we're talking about making a resolution that would not affect the city of Albany. So that's definitely a point that I think is worth raising. EDC has stated in the past that they tie their solar rates to PG&E. That's a decision that EDC has made. I don't think that they necessarily have to make a decision that way, but I found that point particularly interesting. A couple of other comments I did want to make. I work with rural cooperatives that are electric utilities in the Rocky Mountains. They have a lot of the same problems that PG&E has, but they are not investor-owned utilities, and they do see many of the same issues. I think one difference is that many of them do encourage rooftop solar because it has a lot of other benefits. In general, if you look at how devices are being installed in homes that are being upgraded, if you add an electric heat pump, if you add an electric vehicle, we're looking at an increased energy usage load of something between 30 and 40%, and we're going to expect to see many Albany residents encounter that increase in load over the course of the next 20 years. And one difference from devices in the past that have been behind the meter is that many of these new devices that do consume energy are smart devices. They can turn on and off. They can react to different circumstances that are going on. They can decide when to use energy and when to not use energy. So I think in many ways, the planning processes that many utilities in the past have used and the extent of solar curtailment that we see in California sort of suggests that, you know, depending on your beliefs on how demand will shift in the future, we might be simply producing power that we have yet to use rather than really seeing like too much power. I guess the last sort of general two shifts that I did a little bit of independent research on are there has been a lot of discussion in the last couple of years about expanding the Western energy imbalance market. If that happens, that could help with solar curtailment. Similarly, I think that there has generally kind of been a shift in how aggregated resources are allowed to be bid into energy markets. There was a FERC regulation recently, I think FERC 2222, which allows aggregated resources to act as players that source power to energy markets. So you could imagine seeing that if the amount of customer-sited solar increased drastically, that there would be companies that would rise that would take advantage of these opportunities to sell energy into the Western energy imbalance market or curtail demand as needed. So I guess in general, I think that the new NEM policy seems to be a lot better than the previous iteration of it. I do think that in general, California needs more customer-sited rooftop solar, and the new policy hurts that to some extent. But at some level, I believe that we shouldn't submit a resolution at this time because it's about an issue that largely doesn't affect the city of Albany and seems to have just a great deal of complexity given sort of the benefit that such a resolution would have. So I think those are my immediate comments.
Committee Member Peterson, I see your hands raised. I want to get through everyone first. Committee Member Mohammed, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Committee Member Melgen.
Yeah, several things. First off, the last two large transmission lines in California that I'm aware of are neither one is owned by PG&E. There's a part between the Gates and Gregg substations in the Central Valley that anyway is privately owned. And then there's a DC line from Pittsburgh under the Bay to San Francisco, and that is also not owned by PG&E. Another thing, the last big power plant that PG&E built that I'm aware of is the CalOSHA station, which started operation in 2015. And private developers are doing just fine building grid scale solar. The last time well, in fact, I just looked the other day. PG&E owns 4% of the grid scale solar in California. There are lots of companies I've never heard of are building the bulk of it. And they're under contract to EBCE or PG&E Energy Procurement or whoever, but these are not profit-making ventures by PG&E. These are all a pass-through. Now let me go to the big picture. This goes back to more what the public commenter said. The PUC has a very contentious proceeding to decide how much revenue PG&E should be allowed to make separate from procuring the electric energy. And that's where that profit margin of whatever $1 billion comes from. So there are lots of parties in there on one side, PG&E on the other, arguing. TURN is one. I mentioned their comments a little bit ago on NEM 3.0. California Farm Bureau, California Manufacturers and Technology Association, on and on and on. So there's a big battle. Eventually, the PUC decides on a revenue requirement. And you can think of that as a gigantic pillow or a balloon. A balloon is an even better analogy, because if it's poked in one place, PG&E is not making as much money as it's supposed to. The PUC, not PG&E, the PUC adjusts the rates so that PG&E makes that amount of money somewhere else. And if they're not making enough money by selling at retail rate because people are putting up rooftop solar, then they're collecting more money from the people who don't have rooftop solar. That was the basis of the comment by the attorney for Turn that I quoted from the Examiner article. And you can see it in the article by Professor Borenstein that I included. So, I mean, if you think PG&E is collecting too much money, then there's a forum for that at the PUC. My personal feeling is that we're kind of stuck with the grid. Lots of people talk about energy independence, but very few people decide to actually go totally off grid in urban areas because it costs a lot of money. Not only solar panels, but do you have a diesel backup generator, lots of batteries? It's just a lot of money. So my personal opinion is most of us are going to be stuck with the grid. It's unfortunate, but I don't think it would be fair to call it antiquated more than it would be fair to call the street in front of my house antiquated. It's old, but I rely on it. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Just a quick point of order. We do have about 7 minutes left in the extended time. So if we want to continue this conversation, we should make a motion to extend. And just a note that Committee Member Larson is in the audience, even though we can't see his face. So just a note to call on Committee Member Larson as well.
Yeah, I was going to go on to him next, but I didn't know if we were going to extend first or not.
Cool.
I can make a motion to extend. Boy, we still have some other items on the agenda, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to suggest extending another 30 minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay. Committee Member Chen?
Aye.
Committee Member Larson?
Aye.
Committee Member Melgen?
Aye.
Committee Member Mickey? Oh, on mute.
Sorry. Aye.
Vice Chair Mohammed?
Aye.
Committee Member Peterson?
Aye.
Chair Fassoon?
Aye.
Great. I also just want to remind the committee that the action before the committee is to determine whether or not to send a resolution to council. So just using that as a way to frame the conversation might be helpful to make sure we're striving towards the goal of recommending the motion or not. Because I think we can all acknowledge that NEM is extremely complicated and we could talk about it probably for 3 days worth of evening meetings. So just a reminder of what the goal of the discussion is. But back to you, Chair Fassoon.
Yeah, let's go over to Committee Member Larson.
Hi. Yeah, thanks. I had a couple of thoughts on this. And I'm torn about the question of what to do with our proposal, because I agree with some of the comments that the revised proposal seems a little bit better, but I still have some concerns, and so I thought I would raise those in the context of whether or not we want to, send the motion forward or not. My first concern is that a lot of emphasis seems to be placed on who's getting the benefit of the pricing and who's getting, disadvantaged because of that. And my concern is that the NEM system's been in place for 10 plus years. I don't know exactly when it was implemented, but more than 10 years. And the CPUC and PG&E set the pricing for the NEM agreement. And anybody who invested in solar at the time, responded to that because that's what the offer was. It wasn't the solar people who wanted to, we didn't say we're only going to pay this amount. And so now it concerns me that this is being positioned as the solar people invested in solar are benefiting at the expense of people who didn't invest in solar. And like you say, it's very complicated, and maybe that is happening, and maybe the pricing needs to be adjusted. But it concerns me that that kind of language gets people fired up about like who's being unfairly treated, and that seems to me to be the wrong approach, because it's like we just need to make something sensible that continues to incentivize people to get solar on their rooftops at any income level. So it concerns me. So I wouldn't mind paying more, and the rates adjust, that's fine. But it concerns me that this is being positioned as robbing one group to pay another, or somebody's benefiting because it was the pricing that was set. And if it was wrong, then it should be acknowledged that it was wrong, and then somebody screwed up and it needs to be adjusted, and that's the reason for it. But it concerns me that the pricing is being adjusted and disincentivizing solar, and yet PG&E is doing just fine. The second thing that concerns me is the battery storage part of it. I like the fact that there's language in there about how to incentivize people to contribute power to the grid when it's needed, and not when it's not needed. But the utility is the resource that should be collecting that energy and storing it for when it's needed. I really, it seems really short-sighted to be saying that we're going to incentivize individuals to put batteries in their homes so that the utility can benefit from getting power when it's needed. I read an article where there are big battery storage facilities in the state, and it actually helped us through last year's energy crisis. The utility should be doing things that help to get the renewable energy in a useful way. It shouldn't be up to the individual homeowners to do that. And so while I appreciate that there's the issue, I think putting it back on the homeowners and PG&E saying it's all up to the homeowners to create the battery storage backup so we can get the power when we need it. I'm still not quite totally happy with that. And the last comments about it, the grid and whether or not we like it or not, I think the grid's great. I mean, that's our energy distribution system, and it should be working for society, and it shouldn't be all just dollars and cents and who's making money and who's not. I think the CPUC needs to rise a little bit above that and say, we are in a climate crisis. We need to do the right thing for society here. And yes, we need to understand the practicalities of this, but CPUC is a public entity, and it should be working for society to some extent as well. So that's my comment. So I'm torn on the motion, but I guess we'll get to that at some point here. Thanks. Did all that come through?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Committee Member Peterson?
Yeah, like Lizzie said, this could go on a long time. I have a lot of comments I could make and some other statements in it. And I was going to launch into this, but I just realized I'll take up another 10 minutes of the committee's time. I'd like to suggest that we table this for next meeting, which unfortunately I'm not going to be at because I'll be in Australia. But or maybe we table it to even January. And although I really would love to just push this through. And that the subcommittee convene again and look at these comments and consider what Mark's brought forward and make some adjustments if we see fit. But I'm hesitant to do what Member Chen said and just not propose this at all. But I think we're going to wipe out. We'll be here very late tonight if we keep going on like this. So that's sort of my suggestion. And if I made a motion to that, I'm just wondering, would others support that?
I don't think you need to make a motion to not take something to city council, but I do just want to note that as far as I know, the timeline for decision making at the CPUC level is potentially December 15th. So the committee, you're more than welcome to have council say something to the CPUC, but it's possible they would make a decision on NEM 3.0 before that. Just want to raise that.
Yeah, right. Well, okay. Well, maybe we just cut to the chase and take a poll to get the temperature. I think that the spirit of there's one clause that whereas we should take out, which was the one that referred to existing NEM users being compromised on the time of their contract. That's no longer the case. I don't think we made specific reference to the connection fee. If we did, that should be pulled too. But I would be willing to accept that and pass it on to City Council with those adjustments, and would make a motion as such. Well, I make a motion that we present the what is it? It's is it a statement, or what is it? What is it? We're telling the city council to issue a proclamation.
It's a proposed resolution for council.
Okay, so I make a motion that we submit the proposed resolution to city council, removing any reference to changes in NEM 1, NEM 2 contract length, and any references to grid connection fee. Otherwise, everything else would stand. That's my motion.
Yeah, I'll second that.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment. There's also language in our whereas. So let's see though, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth whereas, where we say calls for changes in them that would make customer site renewable energy more expensive, increase the amount of time it takes for customers to pay off their systems. That, according to what what they have said, is not. I don't know that that's accurate anymore.
Yeah, it is.
They say that
doubles.
That
it doubles.
They say that those people who in the next 5 years sign up will get an additional bill credit that would allow them to pay off their system in 9 years.
Yeah, well, that's almost 10. You can do it in 5. You know, and it depends on the system.
Yeah, Nick. I mean, I was told it would take me 10 years to pay mine off, right? So if no one wants to second what I'm saying, that's fine. But I don't know that we can say that it increases the amount of time it takes for a customer to pay off. If
it does. It definitely does. I mean, what you got may be because you have a more expensive system, but on the typical systems, I mean, I've seen comparisons, and it essentially almost doubles. It depends on the system again, but I think that's still relevant. But if that's a sticking point, we can pull that one. I think we should just get in saying that that it's mainly the reduction in value, which will reduce the amount of people that will opt to do this.
Yeah, I would. Sorry, I will. I'd like my friendly amendment to be to strike that language and instead insert concern that the proposed bill credits will expire, are only applicable for the next 5 years, and as such, any residential customers installing solar would have an increase in the amount of time it takes to pay off their system. One of my big concerns is that it's all of the things they're talking about. It only applies to the next 5 years, because as soon as that 5 years disappears, you're talking about like a really long time to pay things off because you're not getting the bill credit.
Is there a consensus to, I will go back and re-listen to the recording to get exactly what you said,
Yeah,
but
I'm okay with that. I mean, the idea here was
someone has to second my friendly amendment.
Well, I made the amendment, so I guess I'll second it.
okay. I guess I'll take a roll call vote, or we're doing this formally. Committee Member Chen?
I'm gonna vote no. I don't think that this is the right time to submit a resolution for a body that doesn't directly govern us on an issue that is very complicated that we might be getting the details wrong on. I can't vote for this.
Can someone please clarify me? Is the intent of this motion to vote on this resolution as a whole, but with that minor change, or is it just to make that minor change?
No,
I think it's the
initial one was to send this on to City Council, removing the, that it reduces the NEM 1 and 2 terms because it no longer does that. And any reference to a grid connection fee because it doesn't have that directly, although it's embedded, but it's not as bad as it was. And then the friendly amendment that you just were typing up that came from John Mickey.
Right.
But once those changes are made, it's going to the City Council with our recommendation. And of course, people can go to the
My understanding is first we have to vote on my friendly amendment and see if the whole committee agrees to that. And then we vote on the entire, essentially, then we vote on your, on your motion.
Because Jeff is here, I think we could make all changes and then committee members could vote on the resolution as a whole. And if they reject one or all of the changes, vote no. That's typically, I think, how I've seen it done.
Okay.
But I do request that the committee take a look at the resolution. I'm not totally clear exactly what you all want me to edit out. So, and I don't want to mess it up. So what whereas clauses am I editing? I have this one, but what are the ones you want me to remove?
There's a whereas many existing Albany solar system owners. Whereas,
okay. Here.
Yeah. So I believe that's one of them.
Okay. Make a change.
I don't think there wasn't any direct reference to it didn't look like there was any reference to the grid connection charge.
Mm-hmm. And then
I'll mention what is now the whereas statement at the top of the screen is false.
So well,
be deleted.
I think what we should say is California I would say, needs to triple the amount of solar, which currently which include, I mean, that includes grid, the big grid tied plus the rooftop, of which so far it's, it's about half and half. So of which, we could say of which rooftop solar is a large component.
And then would we strike everything until it gets to comma as reported by the California Energy Commission?
Yeah, yeah, that's what they reported. We need to triple solar.
I should also mention, if in the interest of time, I didn't go into what the CEC said in that email, but she also said that this economic optimization model did not choose any rooftop solar because grid scale solar is cheaper. I can read that email if you want.
Well, cheaper in what way? I mean, if every homeowner is paying for their own system and then allowing the utility, it's, what you pay for the power, it's just, it's almost like a philosophical statement that someone cannot use their own power that they've generated with their system they've paid for, that's stolen from the grid. That's just a negative statement that goes completely contrary to anything that I would support. So I don't really buy into that argument.
I mean, they would have to upgrade the substation in Albany if everybody got solar panels, right? So there is some cost on the grid.
Yeah, and Professor Bornstein addressed that. And
it kind of seems like we're veering back into discussion here.
Yeah, we're getting back into discussion. So anyway, I'm going to throw this out there. It may not pass anyway. So can we just agree this is as butchered as we can do to at least vote on it?
Leave everything else as is.
There's one other edit. Sorry.
Where's that?
Where you go, whereas on December 13th, one, why are we referencing the old proposal to the new proposal? But if we're going to leave that, the second bullet point, I believe, is inadequate market transition credit reducing for,
yeah, that's right.
What you wanted strike, Nick?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a bigger question just about why we're referencing the old NEM3 proposal as opposed to the current NEM3 proposal. But
yeah, well, yeah, it should be. Whereas December, I would say I would leave that. I would leave that and say whereas NEM2 proposal, which was then modified and reissued on whatever.
Okay. Where do you suggest inserting that?
Well, I would leave the reference to the initial decision, just leave that. And then issued Goto's decision, which was after PD, which was then issued in a modified form on, what was it?
November 10th.
On November 10th. It's still extreme. I mean, compared to what everybody else was suggesting and all the other recommendations, it's still very similar to what the IOU's proposal was, which is basically this big reduction in benefit. So, I mean, it went from 80% down to 75%. That's only 5% change. But getting rid of the grid connection fee and the other thing was good. Anyway, we may not even pass this, so I just wanted to try this to get the temperature of the committee.
Okay. With those edits, we should probably do a new motion.
So we had started voting, so that's new motion. Okay, yeah. I make a motion that we put the resolution forward to the city council with recommendation they pass it based on the changes made.
Okay.
I second. Okay.
Committee member Chen?
Yeah, sorry, I don't think any of the reasons I stated before have changed, so I'm still a no on this one.
Okay. Committee member Larson?
Yes.
Committee member Melgen?
No.
Committee member Mickey?
Yes.
Vice Chair Mohammed?
Yes.
Committee member Peterson?
Yes.
Chair Fasoon?
Yes.
Okay. The motion does carry, so we will bring this to City Council in December for their consideration.
What meeting would that be?
I'm not sure, but December 5th would be the one to go to before. So it'd be
That would be that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Damn, I still miss it. I'll be on a plane.
Okay, well, we'll aim to get this on the council consent calendar for December 5th. I encourage members of the committee to attend the meeting. You can designate a representative right now if you want to make a comment on it, or you can just join the meeting to make a comment on your own without being designated. But staff will prepare a brief staff report and attach the resolution.
It probably would be good to have a member of the committee there to answer questions and speak to this. Is that right? Or is it appropriate for just staff to put it forward?
I think you're welcome to make comments on it. If you were to do public comment, we'll likely bring it on the consent calendar. So it would only get pulled if a member of the council or a member of the public chose to pull it, at which point you are welcome to make a public comment or answer any questions that you hear come up. It won't be a presentation, so there's no presentation to give.
Oh, okay. So, okay, gotcha. So we don't need to decide here amongst us if someone would represent the committee.
No, so long as if anyone from the committee does attend and makes public comment, you acknowledge that you're doing it on your own behalf.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, great. Okay, I believe that concludes this item. Chair Fasoon?
Yeah, should we move on to subcommittee updates?
Yes, and note that we have about 12 minutes remaining.
Okay, let's see how much we can get done. Yeah, so I can start with the Student Outreach and Engagement Subcommittee. I was supposed to meet with the Assistant Superintendent on Monday. Unfortunately, she had to cancel for some reason, but we are going to reschedule that meeting for either tomorrow or Friday. And otherwise, I talked to a board member last week and discussed our plans and what we kind of hope to, like our goals and how we plan to follow through with those goals, and did receive a lot of support and also like feedback on ways that we could go about this in terms of who to contact and how, like, the duration of it and what they would look like more in depth. So that feedback was really appreciated. And with that feedback, next steps are meeting with the assistant superintendent of the district and kind of getting her feedback as well. Yeah, open to answering any questions as well. Or committee member Mohammed, if I didn't touch on something, feel free to jump in.
No, I guess you covered it, yeah.
Yeah, committee member Peterson.
Did you say you met with a board member? Was that it?
Yes, I did.
Is it okay to say which one it was?
Clementina Duran.
Oh, okay. And she was supportive.
Yes.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you for doing that.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments or anything? Okay, yeah, so that was basically our update. Is we're still talking to people, and kind of our goal is to get specific support from the board members and talk to them first, and other faculty of the district. And once we get their support, we were advised to reach out to the principals of the school and talk to them about it, and then kind of gauge a more thorough plan with those going forward. So yeah, there will be more updates at the next meeting for sure, but that's where we're headed. With that said, we can go to the Zero Emission Transportation Subcommittee.
I believe Committee Member Larson left the meeting, so it's just Committee Member Peterson.
Yeah, I don't have really anything to report on that. I don't think we even chatted about it past what we updated. I think it was 2 meetings ago. So we have some ideas of what we're looking into, just haven't started pursuing those yet. So we'll have to regroup and report next time.
Okay, we can move on to the Home Electrification Mandate Subcommittee.
So John and I, remember Mickey and I had some conversations about that. I don't know if, John, you wanted to mention that, but I think also, I can't recall, Jeff had expressed interest in sort of meeting with us too, and we didn't have an opportunity to do that. I'm curious to know if staff has done anything to kind of look into this a bit more or provide some comments back that you need further clarification on. I think when John and I spoke, and John, you can jump in on this, the idea is, again, trying to come up with a methodology for easing into this. Again, this is a policy that will ramp up, has flexibility to do that, is capable of starting as almost a recommendation to get people on board and familiar with it, and then starting to have actual costs associated with it that would be tracked. And so there's coming up with the methodology of how that would be done is probably a interesting task and a little bit beyond maybe my or John capability, but I don't know if we want to bring someone else in to help with that, or if it goes to like sort of a business person in the city. But again, I don't think Mark is aware of what this is. There's a proposal for having a point of listing requirement for evaluating energy efficiency and scale of electrification for any single family home that goes on the market in Albany. And depending on how it scaled out in a very simple evaluation, not a complex modeling or difficult energy calculation analysis, it's just checking off the boxes of what it has, what it doesn't have. If it's a poor performer, then the home needs a certain amount of improvements done within a certain period of time. It's up to the owner and the seller and buyer to work out who pays for it, but it would be tracked and then close out in escrow. So
and Nick, if I can jump in, sorry.
Sure, go ahead, John.
I think part of it is just in the bigger effort of trying to decarbonize our residential user base in the city. While we're unlikely to be able to mandate that you can't install gas appliances in a house, except in the process that's already been agreed upon where there's a permit required. That this part of my hope in talking through this with committee member Peterson was understanding that ramp up, right? That if, I don't know if any of you are familiar with something called walk score that kind of came out and was something that I believe initially realtors weren't really excited about, but turned out to be a huge marketing tool for realtors, and realtors actually have adopted it in a way to help them sell properties. And so part of our conversation with committee member Peterson was, we are not experts in the math or the cost side of the proposal, but what if we can start a process by which there is a score that is ranked out there that is provided with every house that's sold, just it's almost a badge of honor, right? People are spending anywhere from $1 million to $2 million on houses in Albany, and to be able to say, not only do I live in a high-scoring walk score neighborhood, but I have this green electrification, whatever it wants to be termed or advertised as, a high-scoring property, right? That can be a huge market changer without us going into having a big stick about saying there's a fine. If we roll out a program where that happens over 2 or 3 years and we can collect data, that can help inform whoever is hired to help us figure out, is there a need and or what those fees should be. But I think there's a way to roll this out as almost an education tool, and something that hopefully will convince property owners that as they do improvements before they sell a property, they don't go in and install a new gas range that will be with that house for 20 or 30 years. That they either choose to leave the old gas range or to switch to an electric induction top. And so I encourage that the program could at least start off as truly an educational and awareness program, and be something that hopefully we can get realtors to really market and say, hey, look, you can move into this great walkable community, and you're going to have this great green score, and you can think about how you're fighting climate change. So that was where we got to at the end of our conversation. Committee Member Peterson, I think.
If I can quickly jump in before we have more conversation on this, it is 9:47. We do have a member of the public with their hand raised, and we still have to do call for future agenda items. We should have an extension of the meeting again.
Well, another 15 minutes.
So to 10, are we going exact, or do you want me to round?
Yeah, well, let's go to 10.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Committee Member Chen?
Aye.
Committee Member Larson is no longer here. Committee Member Melgen?
Aye.
Committee Member Mickey?
Aye.
Vice Chair Mohammed?
Aye.
Committee Member Peterson?
Did you hear
Committee
me?
Member.
Aye.
Okay. Chair Fasoon?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. You have till 10.
That was the end of my update.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say I sort of concur with that, although I think the program would say, hey, we've got this trial educational period, but then after a year, this is what, this is going to roll in and these things will happen. And I think the reason for that is it's got to move forward, and the only way to really move it forward is for people to realize it's similar with the sewer lateral. Nobody was doing anything until it really had become mandatory, and then they do it. They just do it, because they have to. So at some point in Albany, you won't be able to sell a polluting home, in 2045. Well, we're not going to wait till 2045 and just slam the gate. So there's this transition period, right? So at first it's educational, then the next year it's, a bigger stick is kind of there on, and all of this is done to incentivize. It's not like you can start doing this at any time. So people will know, hey, if I'm going to sell this house 10 years or even 4 years down the line, I better make these more energy efficient and electrification upgrades, rather than pumping money into something that doesn't reduce the emissions. Anyway, I think that's about as far as we got.
Okay. Chair Fasoon, should we open it up to public comment?
Yeah.
Okay, if any members of the public would like to speak to this item, please raise your hand. The member of the public who had their hand raised lowered it. If that was a mistake, please raise it again. Okay, no public comment. Back to you, Chair Fasoon.
Also,
Sorry, just one quick question. There was the NEM 3 position recommendation subcommittee. Do we want to keep that one open? I guess I'm kind of asking Nick.
I think we've sent that on, so I don't know if we particularly need to end it right now, but
we can add that to the next agenda, and then in December or January, based on availability, we can decide to sunset it.
Okay.
But yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Committee Member Chen. Good point. Okay. I think we're on to future agenda items.
Yeah.
Any requests for future agenda items?
Member Peterson?
So in light of, Kim Trutain and the AUSD presentation, would it make sense to have a discussion about how we can collaborate more closely with the district on some of these potentially overlapping climate action issues?
I don't know. I don't exactly know what we would present unless we had a project we were going to collaborate with them on.
I like the idea of collaborating on having a very focused grant writing entity advising both the city and the district on helping the actually doing the paperwork and the whole thing to really get that focused. So some ideas like that where the city wouldn't have to take it all on and the district wouldn't have to take it all on and you'd share it,
I think this staff member being hired would be a council decision. So I don't know that staff to this committee could present anything. It's something I'll keep in mind. If there are opportunities for us to present on how we could collaborate, I'll bring that forward, but I don't know that we could just build a presentation based on hypothetically, how could we collaborate at this time.
Kim did bring up was designating school gyms as emergency shelters to allow the district to access programs for emergency energy. That is just one note that I made earlier.
Yeah, that's another thing is there's resilience. Like, here's an example right now. So when EBCE contacted the city about what facilities the city felt should have emergency backup power, they said that the Emergency Operations Center and the police department. They said nothing about any school building. And so that was missed. Now the school district is doing a solar analysis on whether solar is going to save them money, and they evaluated battery backup and they said it isn't worth it. But it could be worth it if it was a resilience issue and we could get federal funding or state funding or some other funding that we didn't have to pay for that would provide it, because it was a city, like someone said, these are the most up to code buildings in the city. So we could partner on that. Now, this is really thinking outside the box and sort of pushing the envelope a little. And I realize the city and the district like to stay apart from one another, but I think we're kind of pushing to say, hey, there's some overlapping advantages here, and how would we approach that?
In the interest of time, we can keep this in the back of, if it's possible to bring a presentation, we can bring one. These are council decisions. They're not staff decisions that we can bring to a committee.
I'd like to interrupt for a second. Nick, we will put this on the agenda because I want to correct what you said, but I don't want to get into it tonight.
And to correct the EBCE resilience issue, please attend next council meeting. We will be bringing an agenda item on doing a solar and storage project with the city of Albany. It was not an option for the city to collaborate with AUSD. That was an EBCE decision. Right. So we'll leave it there. We have 5 minutes left. We should continue to do
thanks for the update,
agenda items. And we should take public comment. Oh, Chairperson, I see Mark Melgen has his hand raised.
Yeah, I'd be happy to go through the presentation that I decided to pass on tonight in the interest of time, omitting all the stuff about NEM because the water's gone under the bridge on that one. So if there's any interest in that, I'd be happy to do it.
This is a presentation on?
Well, there were like 7 items in what I wrote, and I would delete the one with everything that Dr. Borenstein said. But the rest of it about curtailment and about how the grid works and so on, I'd be happy to go through that.
Okay. Sounds good. I don't see Chair Fassoon's face, so I can call on Committee Member Chen.
Yeah, just I believe that we may have a new climate action committee starting in January. One recommendation from the city council was in the month of December to sort of review the work plan. I know we did this pretty recently in our last committee meeting, but it might be good to consider adding that as an agenda item just to make sure that the state of that is captured accurately, so that we continue to make progress on the work plan correctly.
We can definitely do that. Okay, any other members of the committee before we go to public comment? Chair Fassoon, would you like to open it up to public comment?
Yeah, let's go ahead. I see one member of the public.
Okay, Jeremiah.
Thank you.
Oops. I apologize, Jeremiah. I did it again.
Everything's okay. Everything's okay. Possible discussion on installing a solar parking lot structure for the city hall, a solar panel canopy parking lot structure. Also, number 2 is possible discussion of talking about the infrastructure on creating electric charging stations or electric parking spaces on San Pablo and Solano. And the third is important. Policies on off-street parking, charging your cars at your house. For example, right here on Cornell at the end of the block on Marin, there's this vehicle that always charges their car at nighttime, and their electrical cord drapes across the sidewalk to their house, posing a tripping hazard on the sidewalk. So it's basically a car parked on the street, running their cord, draped across the sidewalk into their house. So maybe a policy on charging your cars on the street, running an electrical cord across the sidewalk. Just kind of a tripping hazard, kind of dangerous. Thank you for your time.
Okay, there are no other members with their hand raised. Back to you, Chair Fassoon.
Yeah, does anyone else have anything to add? And if not, looks like we can adjourn the meeting. We were supposed to end at 10. We have 1 minute left, so. Okay, looks like we can adjourn. Our next meeting is December 21st, and I will see you all there.
Okay, good night.